All right, so welcome back again. A lot of familiar faces here. I see Cynthia and Doug, you're back this week. Brian, Caroline, a lot of familiar faces. So welcome back. We're in kind of getting towards the tail end of the summer. So hopefully everybody's having a good summer, getting good feedback from their guests. Guests are having a good stay. I myself am down on the Cape. I'm not a homeowner, as you've heard. I sit on the vacationer side of things. So I'm down here myself for this week and next week, dealing with the heat at the moment. So I think we're going to talk about that a little in a second. Just a reminder, the Facebook group, I think a lot of discussions that come up here are oftentimes also good discussion topics to get even more feedback from homeowners. And so if you have common questions, you don't want to wait till the Zoom meetings to ask them, feel free to go ahead and post those questions onto the Facebook group, the Vacation Rentals Owner Community. Join that if you're not on there, but you'll get great feedback from there as well from other fellow homeowners. And it's a good place to have some of these conversations. We monitor that page as well. So we see a topic in there that is a lively topic. We'll certainly pull it into these meetings as well and continue to talk about that. For today, we're going to go through the same thing, a few updates on our end, and then open it up for discussion from the rest of you. And I forgot to do this. I'm going to mute everybody first, just for the intro, and let everybody else, let me do this. Mute all. Everybody can unmute themselves when we're done with a few introductory comments. Joan, I need to unmute you. You're unmuted. Okay. So with that, I think the first thing that we want to talk about is, as I mentioned, the heat. We're mostly hearing positive feedback from both homeowners and vacationers, but with the heat waves that we get, Joan, you are on the front end of hearing the feedback, and this is a common one. People really complaining about the heat. So, what are your thoughts? What have you been hearing about vacationers' feedback?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. It's a hot topic, so to speak. Many of vacationers are, again, I see all of the guest reviews, and one of the most common complaints this summer is the heat, and we encourage everybody to explain in their listing what it is you have for air circulation. Not everyone has air conditioning. Many summers you don't need it except for a couple of really warm weeks, but this summer I think may go on record as it will definitely go on record as one of the hottest of the summer. And from what I've heard, the last 5 summers have been among the hottest 10 in ever. So I think that this heat might be something that is more common than not, and we have to really adjust to it. Vacationers who don't get a good night's sleep make for cranky vacationers, and so at least cooling the bedrooms is important, whether it's AC units in the windows or fans or both, overhead fan, and some people are putting in splits, mini splits, is that what they call them? Because homes are hard to retrofit for central air, and it is very expensive too. But whatever you do, be sure to be explicit in your listing so that vacationers, when they arrive, are not surprised by what they see or what they don't see. And there are so many vacationers who have gone to, let's say, the Jersey Shore or the Carolinas, and they just expect central air, that they're accustomed to it. So if you don't have it, be sure that you mention that in your description and mention what you do have to keep the air circulation, and just make sure that those items are provided. If you have fans, I know, Jim, you had to hunt for some fans when you arrived at your rental.
Well, and I think just from my experience as a vacationer this week, we didn't know what we had here. We knew it was going to be hot, so we asked the homeowner, and it's kind of an example of what not to do. We get a pretty terse response back saying that they had fans here. So, okay, we arrive, we don't bring our own fans, and find only one fan, and the other fans are up in the crawl space, pull it out. It doesn't look like it's been used in a couple of years, and we have to spend our time to clean it up. Not a big deal to, spend 10 minutes to do so, but again, it's kind of the guest experience. Are you giving your guests the best experience possible? It's not something you want your guests to have to bother with when they come there. It shows that, well, the homeowner in this case wasn't really thinking about that. It wasn't important to them and to their guests. So just think about the mindset of your vacationers coming in, is that they need to feel comfortable, and it's an easy way, whether it's AC or just comfort level of fans and getting the air circulation going. It's an important factor.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is that air conditioners take the humidity out of the rooms, and that's often a factor too. It just, you walk into a home and it's kind of, sticky and maybe a slightly, what kind of smell would you say, Jim? Kind of just the humidity just makes it,
It depends. I mean, and again, I think every vacationer is a little bit different. Like, I mean, I'm a little more accustomed to it. It's not, it's the summer. It's the summer for me. We're going to go to the beach and go to the water. Yes, it'd be ideal, but I knew that going in. We weren't paying for AC. We didn't look for a rental with AC. So I expected that. That's fine. It's
right.
the, again, the comfort level of and the attention to detail that the homeowner, frankly, in this case, did not have this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So something to think about for homeowners and their current situations. And again, if your home is on the water and you say you have, a constant breeze coming through, it's a little different than those if you're not.
Inland.
So again, inland, a little more inland. All right, the other topics, another one, Joan, you're seeing a lot of long-term rentals. We've talked about this a couple of weeks, but we're also seeing we've heard some feedback from owners,
Mm-hmm.
some guests that have extended their stays, they've run into problems. So as we look into the fall, when these long-term rentals pick up even more, people are looking to use the opportunities while they're working from home to get away and work from the Cape and the islands, or the distance learning that's going to continue to happen. You may see families also take advantage of long-term stays.
Mm-hmm.
Joan, what are your advice to homeowners on considerations?
Yeah. Well, if you get an inquiry from someone who's looking for a long-term stay, and by that I mean a month or more, be sure, of course, to speak with them, do your homework, but if they possibly can, depending on where they're from, if they can come and look at your house and even meet with you before their visit, before their stay, that would be ideal. Of the complaints we've gotten so far this summer, I'd say the preponderance of them are from either vacationers or homeowners who say it was a bad match, and in one case, the vacationer arrived and from day one was asking questions. You don't have this, you don't have that, this is broken, I need this. And in a normal course of a week's vacation, vacationers are there to, have a good time, go to the beach, go out to dinner. They're not spending a whole lot of time at the house. And if there are some inconveniences, they put up with them. But for a longer stay, they're hunkering down and spending more time in the house, and they're more likely to ask questions and complain and ask for things that you perhaps didn't have. So, if they have not seen your home and they've only seen it online, it may not meet their expectations, and they're there for a full month or more. So I spoke to somebody this morning who was a vacationer who was inquiring. Unfortunately, she's coming from North Carolina, but she booked a home in Orleans for next summer for 5 weeks. And, sight unseen, actually, I could tell her that I had been to the house because I put a lawn sign out in front of it. So she was calling because she wanted to be sure it existed. So I could tell her that anyway. But it's, I think Beta will post a link to a blog post that we've written about long-term renting and some of the tips for doing that.
I did.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Beta?
No, I mean, I think there are a lot of important things in that post, things to look out for, the increased risks for longer term rentals, some of which you've seen, Joan, I think in recent complaints. Unfortunately, they tend to happen more often during longer term stays. So there are just things that as homeowners we can do to reduce those risks a little bit. So it's really worth looking at. We've also had quite a number of inquiries about the longer term rentals, leases. Joan, did you want to address that, or do you want me to?
Well, we don't have a copy of a sample of a long-term lease per se, but we do have a link to Massachusetts, some options on a Massachusetts government website, I think, about long-term leases that you could adapt.
But we also have decided that in most cases, for most of us, it's not like long term in terms of a yearly lease.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be multiple weeks, and those really are still short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel we're not lawyers. We always say this, we're not lawyers, so you might want to check with somebody, but we do feel that sometimes the short-term rental lease that is our sample lease, if you amend that and just do things like increase the security deposit and
Right.
those kind of things that we mentioned in the blog post, that even though it's technically short-term rental,
Mm-hmm.
that's adequate and actually protects you pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Sure,
Hi,
Doug.
Doug.
Yeah, about the long term, because I received a communication and I had a discussion with the woman, and she and her husband want to be close in Massachusetts to their elderly parents because of the illness. And they wanted to do initially from October to the end of May. And I said, well, I usually go there in October to put the house to sleep for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And then in May, I'm there setting up for the summer. So, well, we're flexible. We had a wonderful conversation. Seemed like very nice people. But I talked to my wife about it. And the first thing I said, in these times right now, where we have so many people unemployed, to leave your house alone for the whole winter could be a problem. And it might be nice to have somebody in there. But I said to the lady, my wife's birthday is coming up Saturday, so can we speak next week? And I was thinking of doing a Zoom with she and her husband. What do you think about that? Just to get to know each other? Does that make sense?
I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you could take her through the home with your computer, right? Give a little
That's
tour.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Well, my wife and I will be there in the beginning of September for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's our own vacation. So I thought invite them over because they were going to be close, right, to us. And then what would you say about the post on the site about long-term rentals? There's a post about that, some information about it?
But Beta's going to, or if she
It's
already did.
there. If you just go to the chat icon at the bottom of your screen, you'll see, I said, here's the recent blog post that we published last week.
Okay, great.
I would just, Doug, to follow up on what you said,
Sure.
as I mentioned before, there are increased risks in renting your home out during the winter. It's a very different situation than a weekly rental in the summer.
Yeah.
So if you can meet those people virtually or directly, all power to you, because you can't be too careful about who is going to be in your home then. You really need to vamp up your efforts towards vetting in the vetting process.
Yeah, I did a little bit of searching yesterday, Matter of fact, I was going to call Joan and everybody else to find out, pricing. 'Cause I don't really know how to price that length. So I went to see what the prices are in Cape Cod for houses that look similar, what they charge a month as opposed to a week. So, and who picks up the electric and the power and the
Yeah.
telephone and the cable and who doesn't.
Yeah.
So
Well, just quickly, Doug, it's anything goes in terms of the off-season for monthly rentals. It depends on how badly you want to rent your home. Some people will rent by the month for the same price as a week in the summer. So if they charge $3,000 a week in the summer, they might charge $3,000 a month. Others are more aggressive with their price. So it really depends. It's not as easy as comparing weekly prices in the summer. Those are a lot more, set, I think. But I think that it depends. And what was the other thing I was going to make?
I was just going to say, it also
Oh, the
depends on which
utilities.
month you do, because if you
Sure.
include valuable months like you mentioned, Doug,
Right.
September and October and May and June, boy, those are, you can rent those weeks and they are of value to you, even if
Yes.
not,
Right.
even if you don't
Yeah.
rent it out.
Yeah.
And whether you include utilities and
right.
Well, and we recommend that you do not include utilities, that they pay the utilities are extra.
Right.
Because,
So the utility bill would come to me, and I send them a copy of the utility bill,
yeah,
and they reimburse. That's how I thought.
Right.
it was. Yeah.
right. Yep.
You guys are great. Thank you. Great
Right.
information.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Doug.
Doug. Last topic before opening it up to everyone else, just as we've talked about this before, but it's worth reiterating about a look ahead towards next summer. So, I mean, we're closing down this summer. It's not too early to start looking at next summer and your plans for booking your rental. And in fact, you take the vacationers leads. We're seeing the activity is strong already for next summer. We're seeing people that are leaving. Joan, you had an incident where somebody actually was looking to rebook the home. They left in July, they wanted to rebook the home, and the homeowner had already booked out their home for next summer. And so it created a little bit of a conflict. So what are some things that homeowners should be thinking about in what is looking to be a earlier booking season for some?
Well, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame than it was a couple of years ago when, many homeowners say, oh, well, I usually give my past renters until January to let me know whether they want to come back or not. And then if they say no, then I put it back on my website, open it up. That seems a little too generous now. And so sometimes a burden the hand. On the other hand, if you have a renter who is really good and they write a good review, they're excellent tenants, I mean, those are the kinds of people you'd like back. So the devil so to speak. So you have to see, but I don't think I would necessarily recommend waiting and allowing this year's renter, unless they're long term, they've been there many years, or even a few years. I would give them the benefit of letting you know if they would like to rent it and giving them a little time. But if somebody's only been there once, as was the case today, the guest wrote a wonderful review for his stay in July, and the owner had booked up next summer, all of July, before this particular renter was even at the house. And then he took umbrage at the fact that he wasn't given a chance. He said, all of my other renters that, in the past, I've always been able to just say that I wanted that same week the next year. So it's likely to get a little dicey.
I think the thing to be is proactive there as a homeowner. In an unprecedented time where this homeowner was getting activity for not just this summer, but next summer, he didn't want to bypass that up. But I think what happened is that the vacationer reached back out to say, can we get next summer? And the homeowner said, oh, sorry, I already booked it. I think it's, if you're proactive with your guests, maybe it's upon leaving, upon returning their security deposit. If you're getting activity already for next summer, and you know some of these weeks might go quickly, then it's in your right to ask the vacationer upon leaving, if you'd like to book the same week next year, then I do ask for a deposit now because of the demand. It's okay to do that. If you don't feel comfortable and you want to wait a little bit and figure out your pricing, again, that's fine. As Joan was saying, we just don't recommend waiting till January. Figure out what works for you, but it could be anywhere from now as they depart till early fall and get things in motion. You don't want to lose out, especially Beta, you would probably agree about the island folks, is because of the ferries, the earlier the better. A lot of the islands are going to book up in the fall, so the earlier the better.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Joan, on that topic?
Don't think so.
All right, well, we're going to open it up to the rest of the audience here for free game for any questions that you may have, or any sort of situations, stories that you want to tell the rest of the audience here, experiences. If you want to, let's see how we're going to do this. We always do it by a raise of hand. I do see, Elaine, I see you, and then there is a way to raise your hand virtually if you find it. Let me get Elaine first. I got to unmute you.
Okay.
All right, there you are. Hi.
Thank you. Okay, just quickly, we've been using our fogger after each guest, and that's fine, but I found that it was a really good idea to buy a respirator, with the, what do they call us? Filters? It look like a bug, but it really prevents most of that chemical, getting into your lungs. We were using our regular masks and things, and that just didn't feel good. So the mask was about $99, and it encompasses the whole face, and worth it. Made a big difference. And the guests are very happy knowing that happens between guests.
I bet they are.
Yeah, and they check in at 6, they leave at 9. So we have 9 hours clean, fog, disinfect, and then air out.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to tell anybody, if they were going to get a fogger mister, that you should invest in the mask.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you're the poster child for disinfecting a home.
Well, we're doing everything we possibly can.
Yeah.
And we're being as nice as we can, because some people are so trepidatious, and others are very needy, and what's the word? Entitled. So, the guest is always right. So just make them as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
Elaine, there's a question here. The fogger does disinfect?
Yes. It depends on what you use inside. We use New Foam, NUFOAM, and it's used in hospitals and food service establishments. And it's a 1 gallon, and you use 4 to 6 ounces, and it makes about 32 gallons. So you dilute it and you disperse, and then you discard the balance. You cannot keep it over the week because it degrades and it won't be effective.
Yeah. And how much did the fogger cost? A couple of $100?
Like $270, and then the New Foam is about $38, so about $300 and change.
Yeah.
And if we have to keep doing this, I found it was a good investment. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You're our consultant.
Oh, I don't know. I was just desperate. Doing our best. Thank you.
Great peace of mind for the guests. Thanks, Elaine.
I look forward.
All right. Other questions if you haven't been on the call before and you're looking for the virtual raising of a hand, Greg, I see you. I'll grab you.
Do I unmute?
Yes, you're on mute now.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Couple quick things. On the islands, they will not take ferry reservations till about the middle of January. So people that are anticipating booking ferries before renting, it doesn't work that easily. They open it up online I don't know what the lead time is, but it really doesn't happen until the middle of January. And we all see a trend towards people booking a lot earlier, but that's not going to synchronize with the ferry situation. So that's an FYI. The other thing is that I have a house built in 1850, and there's no way I'm going to air condition a 120-year-old house. I mean, actually, it's a 170-year-old house. And I had some difficulty over the years with people coming out of, say, Southern Connecticut, New Jersey, that live in condos, nice houses with mini splits and everything else, and they expect to have an air-conditioned house on Nantucket. I'm trying to portray my house as a early era home available for a vacation. There is a lot of new construction on the Cape and other places, but they all have an easily adaptable system to put air conditioning in. I think the level of expectation of a lot of people is that they want air conditioning, but I find temperature to be very, very subjective. People come to the Cape and Islands for vacation. They want to go to the beach. They open all the windows in the house. It gets to be 85, 90 degrees during the day, and they expect to come home and have the house nice and cool. It just doesn't work. And so I try to stay out of temperature control and advising people on what windows to keep open, closed, which ones have screens, which ones don't. I have air conditioning in each of the bedrooms, which I feel is a de minimis responsibility on our part as landlords. But when you try to deal with comfort and a subjective definition of what comfort levels really exist, we're getting into a swamp trying to deal with old construction and keeping it fine for renters. These are general experience comments that I'm kind of interjecting here, because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about air conditioning and all the other things, the ferries and everything else. And I think the less we get involved with subjective opinions of rentals, the better. I do have fans in my house. I recently bought all new fans, plastic construction, except the valance around the fan is metal. But I had some fans that, because of moisture on the island, they started to rust. And people come in with looking for a visual impression of what they're going to be using. They see a white fan with ferrous oxide on the whole thing. They think that you don't care and you're not clean. So I ended up getting new fans that were substantially made of plastic. They're only like $15 a piece at Walmart. It's a very easy expense, but it saves a lot of bother.
Well,
That's
I think thanks, Doug, thank you, Greg. I think that you're upfront with your prospective guests, and you set expectations, and I think your price probably would be a whole lot higher if you did have central air. So I think people appreciate being on the island and staying in your home so close to town. So I think that you're doing what you can and what you should be doing.
I agree.
Everybody, it's individual.
I agree. As Greg said, it is subjective, but you also kind of need to be aware of that and work with that. Everybody's experience in your home is subjective, but as homeowners, it's our duty to try to meet as many needs as possible. You have an older, sounds like a beautiful antique home, but it's just, as Joan says, it's so important for them to not arrive and have any expectations that can't be met. So as long as they know, and you're real, like I go out of my way to point out any negative thing, if it's a negative, if it's possibly a negative. So as long as they know that. I also wanted to speak to your point about the boats. That's certainly true, and I have it here on the Vineyard, but it doesn't mean that I won't get bookings in the fall. I often do. And people now, with this the market, the trends change, right? But this year has been a very homeowner friendly, if you will, despite all the things we've had to deal with. There's certainly been a tremendous amount of demand from vacationers, which we actually expect to happen next year. So I think more vacation, what I'm getting to is that more vacationers are going to be looking to nail down their homes, and then they'll deal with the boats. Most of those people are well aware of the boat situation, and they'll get their reservations when they can. But I wouldn't not put your home up for, enter its availability because the boats haven't been opened up yet. Maybe that's not what you were saying, Greg. I just want to make sure.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of technique on getting ferry reservations or getting a vehicle over. A lot of people don't realize that the Steamship Authority has a drive on and drive off pass. It's $25 on each side of the transit. They will put the vehicle on for you for $25. You don't have to stay with the vehicle. This year, they made people stay with the vehicles because of COVID-19. That caused a lot of difficulty for a lot of people bringing cars over this year, because this big rush we saw of bookings in June, July, and August this year, all of a sudden people tried to get their vehicles on and they're already booked or whatever. So a lot of people either end up leaving one person with the vehicle and everybody else came over on their own, okay? Or they didn't bring a vehicle at all because the COVID-19 restrictions, they didn't allow the SSA employees to actually do any driving this year.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are unaware of working around, oh, I can't get a booking on Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, they run freight ferries all night to get vehicles over. And a lot of people that are first timers on the islands don't really understand the full gamut of the availabilities to get vehicles over. So
Not to mention the waiting list. The wait list works really well. You give them a window of opportunity and it virtually always comes through. So
right. So that's about it.
Great, thanks, Greg. I think what makes a lot of sense, maybe Beta, Greg, and other vineyarders, and I assume the same would probably be true for Nantucketers, is we can provide some of this information, compile this information to provide for our guests, for homeowners to share with their guests on potential options for finding ways to get ferries. Certainly that would be helpful. And unlike, many things this year, COVID-19 has disrupted a lot of things. So the ferry is just one of them, and being able to stay with your car or not, there's been a lot of things have been disrupted. I just added to the chat, if you're looking for a way on how to raise your hand virtually here, go ahead and take a look at that on your smartphone or your computer. I don't see any hands raised at the moment, because there's so many little squares here. I can't see everybody at once, so I can't see if you're literally waving or screaming at me. So
Joan,
any other?
do you want to if there's nobody raising a hand, do you want to discuss those two topics that I mentioned to you? One was home to go.
Home to go. Yes, we're getting in our most recent newsletter, we once again explained Home to Go, a partner site of ours. And I think we spoke about it during the last
Zoom meeting.
It
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But we're still getting inquiries from homeowners who are unaware of it, and they occasionally talk about the fact that the price, there's a price discrepancy, and we just have to explain that at this point in time anyway, we are able to give Home to Go a given price for a week, to which we have added the tax, because we know what the tax is for each town. But what we can't give them at this point is any added expenses. If you have, extra cleaning fees or linen fees or pet fees, and sometimes those vary from rent, week to week with individuals. So there might be some discrepancies. And the thing to do, if you get an inquiry from Home to Go, give them a link to respond to them with a link to your your listing on We Need a Vacation, explain to them that your listing there has the most up-to-date and the most accurate, detailed description of what you provide. And you know, then you can take it from there. And one homeowner yesterday said, asked me, can't you get more information from, can't you vet the inquirers from Home to Go? Because I'm getting some with very little information. They might say, well, is it available for such and such a week? And they won't explain who they are. And we, just like with We Need a Vacation inquiries, some people are more detailed in a description of their family and what they're looking for, and others are not. They simply just throw it out there and say, is it available? And so it's up to us homeowners to just reply, ask them questions. Can you tell me a little about your family? What are you looking for? And that kind of thing. So we send to you whatever they send to us. And other homeowners have asked us, why don't you demand a phone number? Why don't you, make it mandatory? And it was mandatory early on, years ago. And but that's when most people were using their home phones, and they would provide a phone number. But these days, many people just have a cell phone, and they're not anxious to give out their cell phone to everyone. And so we don't make it required, because we found that we were losing inquiries. We were losing vacationers who might otherwise like to inquire by email, but they didn't want to list their phone, and so they just went away. So we certainly don't want that to happen.
I see. Greg, I happen to see you, so I will unmute you. There you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
One thing that has come up on Nantucket this summer that really concerned me in relation to the vetting issues is that there was a party at a home that was being rented on Nantucket, and the police had to go 2 or 3 times to quell the noise. And there were infractions on the social distancing issues. And the town of Nantucket fined the homeowner $1,000 for the incident. So I find that rather odd, because the homeowner has no control over a renter during the occupancy. And to extend the liability from the occupant to the homeowner, who may be in Syracuse, New York, and owns a house on Nantucket that he's renting to a party through whatever website or whatever is used to get the rental, I find that a rather startling. And so there are all these different motives to protect the privacy of people renting. But to be honest with you, I would feel much better if I had a manifest of the names of all the people in the house. You really should get that from the renters, if anything, to note whether there are any children 6 years or younger that are occupying, to get through the short-term lead paint exemption issue that exists under the Board of Health and the Commonwealth of Mass on the Department of Public Health. You have to have that document as part of the rental contract. And a lot of people won't tell you how old their kids are.
I thought that was just for long-term rentals, Greg.
No, 30 days or less. It's 30 days or less.
The lead paint.
Well, it is. Yeah.
The
Yeah, I
lead
mean,
paint
isn't the
exemption is only applies to rentals of 30 days or less.
Lead
So
paint?
I think, what's that?
Disclosure. Lead
It's a
paint
disclosure. The last time you did the inspection, and who do you call if there's a problem? But it relieves the short-term rental from the lead paint issues that exist in older structures in the Commonwealth that are rented for longer than 28 or 30 days. That's in the statute. So there is, there are little tentacles coming in from other areas of landlord-tenant law that relate more to long-term residential occupancy rather than short-term vacation rentals. And I am contemplating amassing some concerns in this regard and getting it to the legislature to enact something that clarifies the short-term rental legal responsibility of both the landlord and the tenant. Because households owning a home and renting it to a family has now taken on the guise of being a hotel short-term rental because of the lodging tax. Okay, we're coming under that umbrella slowly. It used to be you just rented your house. Now, because you have to collect lodging tax, we're coming in under the periphery of actually a real short-term rental, which is a hotel room. We have no expeditious way of evicting someone from a short-term rental under the law because it's not distinguished. You get involved in summary process, which is the landlord-tenant law in Massachusetts, which has a separate court. You can be in there for 3 or 4 months. I know a lot of people that pay tenants to get out of an apartment just so they can expedite the eviction. And I think that there may be instances every year somewhere in the Cape and Islands where someone decides to stay longer than the 7 days they rented. And I don't think there's anything in the law right now that gives an expeditious means of getting those people out. I know along the Jersey Shore and stuff, I've talked to some people, they have a short-term rental law down there that I want to look up and read, where they can actually get the party physically removed from the house in a very, very short period of time because of that.
Joan, let me just interject. Joan, what are your comments on that? What have you seen?
Well, I think a couple of weeks ago, you may not have been on the Zoom meeting, Greg, but I talked about a homeowner in Eastham who had a lease, a 1 week lease with a renter who thought that they were going to be able to stay until Monday. That was their original intention, to stay until Monday. That thought it was a Monday to Monday. It was a Sunday to Sunday rental. So his rental was ending on Sunday morning. He had 10 new guests coming in Sunday afternoon. He said, "You need to get out." The renter said, "No, I won't get out." And so they called the police, and the police came and issued him a citation for trespassing and said that they would if he wasn't gone by Sunday, early afternoon. And so the police said, I will come back. If you're still here, I will issue you a citation for trespassing and you could be arrested. And so he left. So I do think that, I guess it depends on the town and the situation, but I do think that the authorities can make someone leave if they are beyond their date. And this is the first time in 22 years that I have heard of somebody who refused to leave at the end of their short-term rental. I mean, I just think it's really rare. It's much more common when you're dealing with a long-term tenant, and that's where it gets very, a very difficult situation.
Right.
I don't
And
see it as a burgeoning issue because it is very rare. But I think we ought to take the momentum of the legislature enacting the lodging tax and extracting a lot of money out of the rental market for the benefit of the communities and the burdens that renters put on communities. I think we ought to take this momentum and have them give us something back. And that is a facilitated, expeditious manner of dealing with issues like that. Because issuing a trespass citation only gives the landlord the right to go to court. It doesn't get him out that afternoon necessarily. So, if the person in there breaches the trespass, I don't think the policeman can go in there and physically remove them. I don't think so. But anyways, I just think that it's something worth looking.
Yep.
We'll certainly take a look, and I think it's all dependent upon how frequent these situations occur. Right? If it only happens once or twice that we hear about, it's hard to get that momentum. But certainly, it's something that we can continue to look into. Let me just move on for sake of time. I see, Cynthia, you have your hand up. Did you mean to raise your hand this time?
Yes. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right. When the gentleman was talking about somebody had a party and they had 1,000 people there. Now, I was just looking at the lease that I have, and it is, I would assume it's a binding lease because myself and the renter signed it. And on the first thing, I have occupancy limited to 8 people, and that's including children. And then also inside the lease, I have down that the property should not be used for any large gatherings and parties and blah, blah, blah. That's in the lease that they signed. Now, if someone's in my house and they have a big party and the police comes and I get signed, I'm going to take that from the person's security, and if I could get anything else from them. Because you have a binding contract, they shouldn't be doing it. You should not be held accountable. I mean, it's your home, but that's why you have security. I would take that security and try to reap the other money that was taken, that I was charged because of the party.
Right. Yes,
Right.
That's why in your lease, Cynthia, that item that talks about the number of people in your home, and it should say including visitors.
Right. Yeah.
And it should also say any violation of this will result in the forfeiture of your security deposit.
Yeah.
If you don't have that part of it in there, someone may give you some trouble about taking their security deposit, because ostensibly a security deposit is supposed to be used for damage to the home. So just like with pets, if somebody said, well, I had a pet, but he didn't do any damage, and so, you shouldn't keep my security deposit. Anything that you have a restriction on, you should say, this will result in the forfeiture of your security deposit, so that you're covered in that sense.
Good point. I will put that in there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions here? Happy to take a few more before we
Looks
end.
like Ellen didn't.
Who?
Ellen Langrith.
She raising her hand.
Yeah, but she needs to do it virtually.
I can find her. Ellen, I think I'm unmuting you.
Okay.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi,
Hi.
Ellen.
Thanks. Someone mentioned getting the list of people in your house, and I want to mention of children, and I don't ask ages, but I think it's good to get everyone to know the ages of children, to know people, names of people in your house, because if there is a virus outbreak, the tracers would need it. I don't know how active the tracers are now, but I think the governor wants that. So it's a good idea to ask who's going to be in your house for that reason.
Yeah, there's definitely a dual benefit. I think it was recommended by the guidance was to track that information, track your guests, track more information about your guests, like who not just who's renting your home, but who exactly is in that party, adults and children, and for contact tracing purposes. And then even before this year, our recommendation was, yeah, if you can gather that information and helps you understand who's coming into the home and personalize their stay, you want to know, is it 8 adults? Is it 4 adults, 4 children? You want to know who's exactly coming into the home and make that personal connection. So there's multiple reasons to get that information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in your property description, there are some homeowners who will say, well, I got an inquiry for 8 adults, and although my home accommodates 8 people, usually we get adults and children. And so, in your description, you could say this home is appropriate for adults and a few children, or if you have a really tiny home, 2 adults and a child, because it will just give the suggestion as to the appropriate nature of your home and the kind of configuration a family configuration or that you're looking for and that you feel is appropriate for your home.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Ellen.
Ellen.
We
Thanks.
got another one here, Sue and Roy.
Yeah,
Unmute.
hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry I got on later, but I doubt this question's been answered. We had a problem with a bat in the house this year. And has anybody ever dealt with that? We did call this critter control and also our handyman. We've got the situation pretty much resolved. Unfortunately, we have very understanding renters who have been with us many years. But other than the critter control, has anyone had any issues with bats?
Ooh.
Joan?
Joan?
I did years ago. I'm trying to decide what
I don't
we
know if, did you have a
did.
tenant?
We did. They too were very understanding. I can't understand. I don't think I would have been. I would have run away screaming. But I guess, you know, calling the pest control and having them come is really the best thing to do. I mean, that just
Yeah, we called a company called Critter Control, and it was the only one I could find in the entire Cape region that comes out.
really.
We were
Wow.
mostly happy, but not entirely happy with them. I just didn't know if there was, you know, if you have a problem in the future, if there's any other company anybody knew anything about.
You're in the Outer Cape, are you?
For Eastham.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I've
I
had
think
them
that's
in my house
it-
when I've been there, and I just usher them out the window, out the door. So,
Yeah, this one wasn't doing that. We actually
Yeah.
paid $1,500 for a remediation.
Yeah, so this is a great one just because you'll get more people, and we'd have, 50 some people on the call today. But if you're not part of the Facebook group, that's a great one to ask there. And because you'll reach hundreds of people that way. Over the last couple of weeks, there have been a lot of common questions about people looking for whether it be handyman or cleaning service or something like that. So a lot of service provider questions go up on that board as well.
All right, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's the community Facebook page in case anyone doesn't know.
The link
And
will be
there's
in the follow-up email. That will come out tomorrow. Any other questions here? Let's see if anyone's waving their hand.
Can I
Go ahead,
add
Beta.
another housekeeping item?
Sure.
Just this last week, we ran into an issue with a realtor actually who hadn't disclosed their fees, or there was some issue about it. I don't know if exactly that, and it just brought to mind for all of us, any of you who charge any extra fees, whether for cleaning, linens, pets, anything, it's okay if you put it in the property description, but that's not the ideal place. You should put it in the other price info field at the bottom of your calendar page. It's actually false advertising if you don't put it there. So it's just really important. It's not one of those things, oh yeah, I just tell them, when before the lease. I mean, that's good to have it in the lease or something, but yeah, I mean, it is false advertising if for any reason the amount that they're paying is in excess of what you've advertised on the listing. So most of you probably don't even charge an extra fee or whatever, but if you do, I just thought I'd take this opportunity to ask you to make sure.
It's a good point, Beta, and I think something that we've had on our list, and I think with a few issues that have come up, we talked about it with Home to Go and this realtor issue, just to make it cleaner and simpler.
Yeah.
We have that other price field, but it's not consistent, and so it's time to work into our configuration, just a section that we can add additional fees and just standardize it. Just a simple form entry field will be beneficial for everybody.
Good.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, I think we're going to wrap up for today. We will be taking off next week. We're going to skip 1 week and start up again in 2 weeks' time. So our next meeting will be on the 26th, August 26th. So anything else, Beta or Joan?
No, we're in the home stretch, so.
Yep.
Getting closer to reclaiming your homes.
Hang in there.
Some of us, yeah.
Keep cool.
All right. Thanks to everybody joining. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.